Hey guys, it's Matt, welcome to Speed Tutor. So I've scoured the Unity asset store for over a year and I've searched through thousands and thousands of assets to find you the best ones for each of these categories that I'm going to go through. And a lot of you know I release a video every month showing you the best free assets from the Unity asset store along with full lists. And you might not have enough time to go through each of these videos, watch them, you might not even know the video series exists. So I'm going to go through 8 categories with the best assets in each, and I'm going to put a web page together with all of the other best ones that I found that you can check out because I don't have time to show them all off in this video. So it'll be a selection of player style controllers, particles, editor tools, massive tools to help you out, full characters, environments and textures, shaders and UIs and icons. And if you do like this video, be sure to throw a like on that and subscribe because it helps me out massively. And do be sure to check out my Patreon too to get over 225 different scripts, assets and projects. And I'm going to show you a selection of shaders and effects that are going to be really useful. I think you'll like these, which is called Micro AVL for URP, which is a highly performant system which tries to replicate the look of volumetric lights in your scene. And as you can see my scene here, we can have a look around and you can see these are all based on sphere objects, and these all have a light source with a custom shader, and you can create the look of, I've just upped the intensity of this one, and you can see the look of the volumetric lights and fog in this. If you need to add this to, you could add it to street lights, any sort of lamp. And as is with this demo scene, like with my purple object here, all it is a sphere. It does have the M light purple shader that it's got on here, which is the shader graph Micro AVL Omni Light Additive, and you can do that in the same way. If you right click, choose light and then choose Micro AVL Light, you can actually up the intensity of the look, as you can see it down in the game view here. You can up the scattering amount of how you want it to scatter the light. So it's a really cheap and cool way to get these volumetric style effects. I now wanted to show off 2 assets which are pretty useful. There's the water stylized shader and the water flow effect. Now this water stylized shader I've just imported into Unity, and you can actually see it here, and you can select one of these prefabs or this portion and you can see the shader. You can affect the colors and the depth, the refraction, the surface foam and how you want that to look among the edges, the intersection for the foam, the normal map to see the normal mapping across the surface. You can affect the waves, the lighting and the different curves and color. It does by default come with this little ball, and it did have a script on which is about floating, but that was included in this water asset. But the other one that was available free is one which is called water float, and you can create an empty game object and add whichever object that you want to that empty game object, add your water float script. You can adjust the settings for the sort of speed, the wave distortion on how much it will rotate around, and then the different distances. Then if you press play, you can mess around and try and match this up with the speed of how your waves would be based on your object that floats around in the water, which is just to kind of simulate a life if you had a bunches of boats in the harbour and you wanted them to look like they were sort of swaying in the background. I've got another one here called the Grid Master, which is a customizable shader along with primitive objects, as you can see in my scene here. You can adjust different settings of this shader to adjust the top colour if you wanted to create very much your own stylistic look. Good for blocking out your own levels. You can create side objects, you can create offsets for the texture, and you can see they will match up with all of the different objects that you have. And this shader is called the Toby Foliage Engine. This is the light version, so it's not the pro version, but it could be suitable for your needs. So it's an all-in-one solution for PBR-based shading that allows you to set the color of environments and control wind in a more realistic pattern, which is highly optimized. Now I have imported this into Unity, and you can see that these trees and the other things use the tree bark and the Toby Foliage System shaders. You can see this is only the free version currently, and it only has the gentle breeze as an option, but you can see the settings that we have where we can set the wind strength, the wind speed to make it look more ferocious, or you can actually, which is cool about this shader, is to be able to set the slider to change the season, and you can see that all the foliage and trees that share the same shader. I'm going to show you the best free characters that you can find on the store, and I'm going to blast through these. I won't open them in Unity because some of the images do them justice enough. So the first one here is the stylized female character. It's a really high quality character with 25 different animations, and various things to be able to use. Next one we've got is the survival character with 3 to 4 different skins for each, ready for animations, and with a set of high poly hands too. We've got the light insurgent, which is a low poly model, just short of 2000 triangles, so extremely low poly and useful towards your games. Now the bunch of monster sort of characters that I can find which are quite cool is the cursed toy Shadow Lop, so if you want a freaky looking scary rabbit in your game, this one's perfect. And if you want a zombie called the Buckhead monster, this one's quite freaky looking. If you're looking for actually a really high quality zombie monster, which comes with various blend shapes and different level of details, it doesn't come with animations, but it's very versatile and ready to use them. If you want something completely out there, then the Catfish monster has something which is a completely amphibious based monster, which you can imagine in the Fallout series or something like that. We've got something quirky called the low poly mushroom man character, which you can use the default Unity character controller to make this one run around. We've got more of a stylized set of characters, which is the giant monster golem character, which doesn't include any animations, which is awesome if you need it to guard a particular area or use it in a stylized game. Now we've got a few here from the same developer, which is the low poly survival character Rio, the low poly magician, and the low poly bounty hunter, ready for animations too, or you can use it as a third person avatar even. And one of the ones that I found which was a cool little stylized character, which is called the Cobra Robot, which is a 2D style character with a bunch of movement based animations, 2 different skins, and various other attacks and useful things. Now we're going to look at different environments, textures, and useful things to help you build your game world or make it look a little bit prettier. And the first one I'm going to show you is the RPG and FPS game assets for PC and mobile, and it's a big industrial set with over 100 different elements. Pretty optimized actually. I've looked through this one and it has loads of buildings, modular bits to put the streets, the walls, different containers, boxes, and stuff to just populate an area which you might want to look like your next Call of Duty Warzone map. Another one that I thought was really good was the realistic terrain textures pack. This one has really high quality looking textures, especially for leaves and foliage and stuff on the ground, and I think they would be really helpful if you're going to decorate or start painting your own terrain. Speaking of terrains, this one is actually suitable for the built-in, but you could convert it to URP. This is the vegetation stylized kit with 10 different trees, 8 bushes, 7 flowers, and 6 herbs with LODs. A random one is called the raft building kit because you might want to have built your own modular raft with various different floors and stairs, large platforms. Unity's Fantasy Kingdom is great because it's built on Cinti's assets. I do have a full video actually showcasing this, so if you want to check it out, you can get it on the asset store for free. There was a really nice one because I like little scenes and little dioramas for testing things out and doing really cute stylized things, and the low poly atmospheric locations pack has this with 10 different atmospheric locations across cities, jungle environments, deserts, and other different biomes. And if you wanted a cute little stylized one, it's the Japan collection with nearly 400 static tiles at 32 by 32 resolution to create roads, places where you can walk, different buildings, shop fronts, and different things in this really stylized look. I'm going to show you some helpful tools and scripting assets which will really help you out, and I think these are really a selection of versatile tools. Now the first couple are the free inventory system for 2D games, and this reminds me very similar to something like Stardew Valley, where you've got the ability to collect items when they become close, to be able to move items around a basic inventory in this style and be able to throw them in the recycling bin if you don't want them. And it does even include stacking and other stuff, and it can be a great way to learn how to use this. Another one which is very similar but in a more of an RPG or realistic style, we've got a framework which is very similar in terms of letting you stack and unstack items. It has a pick up and drop mechanic. It even has a shop mechanic for selling and buying different items and being able to specify the prices, a crafting bench to be able to produce recipes, and even treasure chests or stuff to store other items in there. We've got one called Optimized Ropes and Cables, and I've got a full video which I'll link down below where I show you how to install this and use this very specifically if you want to know more. Got a good one which is always good to have a save system. Just like with using player preferences and things like that, this actually has the ability to save bits of data with simple bits of code. You can save all types of data, and you can even save things like vectors, quaternions, colors, and transforms, and you can delete stuff. It's got encryption and you can save and load in the background, and it's supported across all devices too. Sometimes you need to add a little bit of juice to your camera. Now Smooth Shake Free is perfect for that, and it's a free solution to do shakes in 2D and 3D. You can do different things like scaling FOV, do rigid bodies, lights, audio controllers, and it's got over 50 different presets. If you're looking for your own audio manager, well, Bro Audio has a full playback system and audio manager for getting this, whether you need it for seamless looping of tracks, whether you need it to do randomization, crossfades between different audio tracks. You can do playback groups, you can have dynamic effects to be able to use within real world, and as a simplified API to be able to do your own calling of when you need to use this and write this for the custom features that you have in your game. So I wanted to show you an asset called Ropofu, which is a foot IK solution for feet and knees when you need that to be more realistic on surfaces. And I've imported the package into Unity, and you can see that you can add this to any pre-existing character controller, and you can add the foot controller IK script, which can choose which obstacles you should be able to interact with, whether you need to fix the knee or other types. You can have foot constraints, smoother movements, and you can actually specify targets, whether you use an animator or particular directions. And when you look around the scene, you can do going down declines, and you can see how the feet move. You can go on more extreme particular obstacles and see how you interact with things that are, really difficult for characters to normally walk more realistically on. And you can see other characters that are actually using the same thing on a fully cylindrical object and different rotations of how the feet would be placed. I'm going to show you a bunch of great controllers, and these are a combination of characters, vehicles, and even something like a helicopter, which you can see in the background here, which has a load of customization for the controls and a versatile controller, because I'd never seen something especially for free on the Unity Asset Store. Now I've imported this into my scene, and you can see the helicopter made in this little demo scene here. You can see you've got controls for the drag, how much the rotor, the lift, the sensitivity for all the different controls for the roll, the pitch, and the yaw, and anything that you want with the engine, and it does use the newer input system from Unity. Now this doesn't look as pretty as the sort of demo video, but you can see I can hold shift to move up, control to move down, and I can use WASD to pitch and roll this helicopter, even do a barrel roll, because why not? And if you do crash, you will actually kill your helicopter. But I would say it's a very unique asset, and I think it's very usable with some customization. Now we've got the Pixel Warrior, which is a 2D animated character. It can move in actual 2 directions, and it's fully animated with over 30 different animations. I've probably never seen this many animations for a particular character like this. It's got idles, runnings, jumps, double jumps, different landings, wall sliding, different melee attacks, pummels, spell casting, shield blocks, sheathing weapons, and it has got a bunch of portraits included stuff. Now we're going to take a look at the Ezreal car controller, which is a simplified version, and when I say simplified, that sounds rude to say how many features that it does have, and you can check it out in the scene. You can see the car controller uses the newer input system, and you can see all the references it has, and it uses Unity's default wheel collider, so it's a great way to learn about this system. If you want to get started, you can set all the default sort of parameters for how fast, how much speed, and things that this car can have. And then it has things like you could do the signals and the brakes and have different lights, and you can even shift up and down gears. You can see it does have a bunch of controls on the right. Now the camera system is missing some script. I'm just showing you this moving around, and you can brake, you can do handbrake turns, you can put the headlights on, put high beam headlights and things like that. I'd really just mess around, do handbrake turns, make this car, or customize the car to use any other car model that you might have. We're going to check out the multiversal vehicle controller, which is a full car system. When I say full, it's got some amazing features in this. It does have a pro version. I'm not actually sure what is in the pro version compared to the free version, but the free version seems to have an awful lot of systems too. So when I've imported this into Unity, it has a really, really awesome set of instructions. It's just real dialog boxes that pop out and say, you need to install this, you should install that. When you go onto the MVC settings, you can see that it has a builder for controlling an unbelievable amount of settings, even things like the power, the torque. You can look at behaviors and physics, whether you should have drag, engine mass, whether you should have a damage system, if you're going to use the different cameras for the bumper, the hood, player inputs and what these should be with a nice little mapper, things for the engine and the chargers, the different compounds, and you can save it and change it as you need. And in the demo scene here, you can see that it has the full car controller with loads of sounds. It's got far more slick acceleration. You've got much more physics. You've got tire squeal, you've got things that are left on the roads, you've got handbrake, and you've got full control over the system. So this package has far more systems and things in there that I can even do justice in this video, but it might be one that's worth you checking out. Now I'm going to show you a bunch of editor extensions and things to extend your Unity usage in some simple tools. Got one called the multi-component copier, which is something that I'm sure is not in Unity and has been needing for so long, and this allows you to bring out a dialog box, add any asset or game object in, and then you can decide which components to copy across and copy to other objects that you want to use. We've got a beautiful simple one called the lightweight mesh info, so sometimes you just want to click on the object without finding the original mesh deep in Unity's folder system. And you can just get it, and you can see how many it is if you need to think that you need to add LODs or optimize it, or you just don't know how many polygons it's going to be. Now I'm going to show you an asset which is quite useful called hue folders. So in your project panel, it often looks quite boring and you don't know the difference between your folders half the time. But if you import this asset and then go to edit preferences, you will navigate to the hue folders section. It has its own section with array here, and you can add a new option to the array and it will give you a different color, and you can drag a folder in and it will change it. You can change the default tint if you don't want it to look like it does. You can change the overall folder's tint to everything. You can change a secondary color, and you can even set how far or how close the gradient is and where it will end in each of the different cases. We've got an asset called Instant Screenshot, which is an incredibly popular tool which is completely free for taking high quality screenshots. If you go to tools and you go to Syed Khawaja and you go to the Instant Screenshot, you can open up the window or you can take a screenshot. You'll get this nice pop out here where you can choose the save path of where you expect this to go, what the scene camera will be, and you can enable transparent if you want to disable the camera background. You can set the direct resolution, because you can change that if you want to up the scale to make 28,000 resolution textures. I wouldn't know how big they would be, but you could choose to fit to screen. You can take the screenshot, and if you go to the preview, you can see what your camera is currently looking at, and if you hit take screenshot, you can see that screenshot was taken, and you can open up the last screenshot by bringing it up there, or you can open the folder and see where it's located. I'm going to show you an asset called the Easy Placement tool, and this is something that allows you to physically in-game place objects. You could use this for a building system, but it saves out prefabs for you to be able to use later. So if you do go to window and you open the prefab placement tool, you can see it here, and you can do placement for physical items. You can choose whether to sequentially place them or randomize, depending if you've got multiple in the list. You can see I've got one prefab here. If we add another, we can do that, and you can choose whichever prefab you've got in your scene of 3D object, and you can set a rotation, or you could just have a random rotation based on it. You can set different scales if you want to, and then save where that prefab will go. Now we'll show this in game. You can still see the editor window here. If I press play, you can see that I get a little gizmo where I can start placing objects. So I put a barrel in here, so I can just place these all around, and physics get added to these automatically. But once the prefab is saved, they don't have physics anymore. So if I wanted to make things look naturally placed, that's maybe what I want. So if I go back to it and say I want to group these objects and save the grouped prefab, and if I go to my save prefab section, you can see that I do have a group prefab which I could name, and I can drag this out and then place this wherever I want. I've got an asset all about input rebinding. So for the newer input system, this allows you to rebind controls for whether it's PC or gamepad, and it converts all of your inputs that use in the input actions to specific GUI elements for you to be able to set and rebind exactly so it can talk to the current input that you've got and change these on the fly without you having to program anything. Now I've got an asset called Hierarchy Designer. This is pretty much an overhaul solution for the entire hierarchy for Unity, and it's got an unbelievable amount of settings. So when you get it, when you import it, you'll see on the right hand side in the hierarchy, you will see that it will split everything up with new icons, new folders, and new systems with different things to show whether something's tagged, what it's about, and different features. If you go to Tools and Hierarchy Designer, you've got a way to specify how folders look. If I open this out and I right click and choose Hierarchy Designer, I can go to Folder and you can go I want to create a default folder, and you can see that we've created a folder which will hold things in. You can set events for these folders and other things, and rather than it just being empty game objects, there's many other things like creating a separator between different elements, and you can set the separator style to be able to change how that looks. You've got a bunch of utilities and presets, but you've got configuration like general settings to be able to show main icons, show layers and tags. So say we didn't want to show tags in these items in the hierarchy, we can update and save, and you can see they've been removed. You can enable main icons if you don't want those to be visible, because sometimes they might be a bit distracting. Hundreds of bits of customization for loads of different configurations. And I also wanted to show you an asset called Saints Field, which is a really useful editor extension, or a bunch of brand new editor extensions. I do actually have a full video showcasing loads of free ones that might be useful, but Saints Field has pretty much an extension which should be in Unity by default. So many different custom attributes that we could use within the game, as you can see when I'm just flicking down here. We've got bunches of buttons, we've got folder structures, we've got previews for different assets and scriptable objects, nested drop downs, we've got arrays, lists, drop down separators, everything that you can imagine. And it's a non-injected list, so you can use this with other things like naughty attributes and other specific attributes that you might want to use. I wanted to blast through a couple of particle systems that might be good for your project, and I did make a full video on the best free particle systems that you can find on the Unity Asset Store, and I'll link down below to that too. So the first two are the high quality explosion packs free and the cinematic explosions free. We've got one which is called the status effects and auras, which is a selection of 6 different effects with different combinations in each if you need power-ups and things like that for your game. A nice one for URP is candle visual effects. Do you want to add a little bit more mood and atmosphere? These ones are actually really realistic. Comes with the candle block itself and the effect, and you just drag it and drop it in and it works fine. And the last set I'm going to show you just quickly in the Unity editor. These use sprite sheets, and this is actually a selection of URP and built-in with 8 different effects. And you can see them around this scene, like a little sparkler, an energy, a few other sort of energy styles, more of a sparkly explosion, a more realistic explosion, and then quite a cool sort of fingerprint thing. And I think you can look at these and see how they're made up, a card reader or fingerprint reader or something like that. In this section, I wanted to go through a few UIs and useful stuff that can help you build more easily. This one, the game input controllers, has a full keyboard, mouse and different things in a really nice style with over 100 icons that you can use. There is 2 here, which is the gun icons and the general weapon icons, all in SVG and PNG format with over 200. We've got one here which is called the micro bar, which is a really cool little framework which helps you create health bars and other things, and it does use a do tween. If you've never used that before, it's a great way to animate or tween between 2 instances, and it's got a great little API for being able to use this. So if you want to take damage, if you want your characters to have health, it's a really nice simple thing to get straight in your game. So do be sure to check out all these assets, and I've got my webpage with all of the ones that are featured here and other ones that you might find it interesting, and I'll link to the playlist too with all of the free assets. And be sure to be subscribed, because I make a video every month summarizing every single free asset that features on the Unity Asset Store. So check out all the links to Unity's brand new mega bundles on the Unity Asset Store, and be sure to subscribe to my Patreon too to get over 225 different scripts, assets and projects you cannot find anywhere else. Big thank you to all my patrons. Special thank you to Peter Steiner, Very Shuther, Jennifer and David for their amazing support. And everybody else, thank you so much for coming to check this out. Do be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.